With great leadership that puts great teams together, we can turn dreams into reality. Now, right now across Louisville, we have huge challenges, but I believe there are even bigger opportunities. And just as Sadiqa and her team built this phenomenal project, so too can we, when we're working together, address all of these challenges to bring our city together and make Louisville a stronger, safer, and healthier city. And that's why I'm excited to run for mayor, and I hope to have the opportunity to be the next mayor. Thank you.
My name is Colin Burton, and I'm running for mayor. Just actually serving as a bartender. And I'm going to echo Phil's point. He's right, we need change. But we don't need to change the character. We need change of the perception and what it means to be a politician. See, I'm not going to say, come up and say things you just want to hear. I'm not going to just pander to the audience. Because I'm one of y'all. I have opinions, I have things, and I'm going to stand on them. And period. So, what I hope to do more than anything is inspire all of you to run to office. This is not their country, this is our country. A few things that we do wrong are we criminalize things that are not crimes. We have a war on drugs that I challenge anybody to give me a single net benefit from it. Anything. One single good thing. And we have a police officer who are completely, utterly devoted to taking the rights away of people who use recreational drugs. And I mean all drugs. Because, I mean, that's exactly what has happened to our community. And as mayor, under my jurisdiction, the war on drugs will be over in the Louisville.
Good evening. My name is Philip Molestina. Thank you to the Urban League, Get Up, and to all of you being here this evening. The biggest question we get is why I'm running for mayor. I can say a lot of things, but you may remember one thing tonight. The watch that I have on my arm is broken. It doesn't work, except for twice a day. That is how I see the issues we're going to talk about tonight. We talk about these issues, we plan about these issues, we say things about these issues, nothing changes. And just like the broken watch, I think we're tired of hearing about this thing. I think it's time to have a mayor who will stand up and say, regardless of the situations, regardless of who have to please, we need changes for the community. We need changes for the people. We need to make a difference in what we're doing. And that's what I plan to do. I'm not here to participate as much as I am to learn tonight. Because this evening is very important, because the issues we're talking about are very important. Thank you very much.
Okay, right.
Oh, I got some feedback over here. Oh, that's a good spot. Where do you want to sit with it? That sounds like Finding Nemo. All right, my name is Rob Sargrossman Jr. and got a little feedback over here. But I never thought I'd run for mayor either. We have city is in crisis. And so, I never thought I'd run for mayor, and I'm running for mayor because the issues that are at hand, I think they need to be dealt with are by people that are actually real people and not politicians, because politicians have got us here. I also believe that if the little D before your name has any indication of how this is going to go. It's been 53 years since 1969, since the Republican was mayor. And since then, we've talked about government programs and all these things and increasing them, but we have not seen results. So I'm running for my family, for everybody's family, and so that everybody's safe.
For our forum tonight, candidates will be asked questions connected to the Path Forward document released in June of 2020. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to the same question. If another candidate would like to respond directly to a candidate's answer or ask a question to a candidate, they may do so 2 times during the event and for no more than 30 seconds. The candidate being questioned or responded to will then have an additional 30 seconds to respond. Before the event, candidates drew to determine the order in which we will begin. Do you support universal pre-K? And if so, how would you work to implement and pay for it in Louisville if you were mayor? Candidate Greenberg, we will start with you.
I emphatically and enthusiastically support universal pre-K across all of Louisville. Every 3 and 4-year-old child in Louisville should have the same opportunity to start their education at 3 years old. The way we make this a reality in Louisville is right now, Louisville's on the map for some of the wrong reasons. So I believe that together we should put together a partnership with Jcps, nonprofit organizations, the private sector, led by the city government and the mayor, to reach out to some of the largest foundations in the world. Foundations across the country that have hundreds of billions of dollars of assets, and ask them to invest right here in Louisville to put us on the map for the right reasons. Together, working with a group of people across our city with this plan, we can have all of the infrastructure we need, we can recruit new teachers, and we can have the resources we need to make universal pre-K a reality. I think this is one of the most transformative things that the city can do for the future of our city. Historically, the mayor and the city government haven't been that involved in education. Well, I think this is one area where the mayor and the city government have to get involved. And so I'm excited to lead this effort to make universal pre-K a reality right here in Louisville.
Candidate Harvey.
It's insanity to me that we are the richest country ever. Like our GDP in 2019 was like $20 trillion. How are we going to pay for pre-K? We're just going to do it. Like we passed $1 billion budget in the city, and we did nothing with it. See, the problem is too many people view the government like a business. Like we got to make money. Like no, we don't. That's not the point of the government. It's not about business. It's about allocation of funds, and the funds, when properly allocated, would do wonders. It's not rocket science to fix these problems. They come up with think tanks, come up with slogans and stuff to get people to see their way. You don't need a think tank to just do something simple like fund pre-K. On top of which, how many people are in the labor force? How many people were left out of the labor force because of child care? We've got plenty of jobs to give them. We got plenty of certifications. These problems are easy to fix if you have the will for it. And I've passed a building right down the street on the way here that was boarded up. Like, what would it take? 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 to get it back in order and ready to go? Like $1 billion. Like, what do we do with it? Give me $1 billion and I'll fix the city in 4 years.
Candidate Molestina.
As many of my candidates here tonight, friends, definitely support universal pre-K. Very important for our city. The biggest issue I think we have is convincing Frankfurt to head things up. If you look around the country, there are states that actually, in their legislature, they already fund it. It's not an issue about if, it's a matter of just as important. So we need to have Frankfurt be a leader in that part. We need to do things also as a city in terms of our budget. We need to work with partners that are also, whether they be businesses or different organizations, to make this a reality, because everyone that's sitting in this room probably has dealt with this problem, one or the other. Trying to figure out who's going to watch your kids, trying to figure out what jobs you're going to take so that somehow you can make that work out in your life. So we do need that in our city. We need it smart. We need it to be funded. We need something that is working and that will make our city and our families safe, and also make sure that the kids that are not going to school, pre-K, getting that type of schooling will get it. Thank you very much.
Candidate Weissman.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that we do need to have universal pre-K. I think that it needs to be funded in a way that's not like Jcps, because at this point, Jcps, I believe, has failed, and I believe a lot of the programs have failed. And so what we need to do is figure out a way. We need to work with organizations, we need to work with communities, and we need to get this to where the community has a say, because if it's run like Jcps, then it's not going to be community-based, and it's just going to do the same thing. So what we need to do is we need to work with other organizations and groups and get this funded, fully funded, and come up with a way that it's better than what Jcps and what other programs are. So yeah, I would say that I do.
Candidate Finley.
Tonight we're going to hear things that are aspirational and things that are obtainable. And it's important that the mayor know how things work. So not only do I, to answer the question, do I support universal pre-K? Yes. The way, and I was the only candidate that made this a public declaration and signed and made a pledge that my first budget recommendation in April of 2023 would include universal pre-K. I recommend, to answer the question, paying for it through an ad valorem tax that the city of Louisville can implement on its own. The Metro Council, on the next mayor's recommendation, can implement the property tax to fund high-quality, full-day pre-K for all 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. That option, this is important, does not require the approval of the state legislature or Jcps. This ad valorem tax generates $7 million for every 1 cent of property tax on $100 of assessed property value. It can be done. We don't need city council and we don't need state legislature if we do it this way.
Candidate Parish, right?
Yes, I support universal pre-K. My kids participated in it. I want my three grandkids to be able to participate. Before we move towards taxation, I got a report today that was put out by the Wharton School for it's an academic study that shows that Louisville basically squandered $90 million last year with incidents that have to do with the police being sued. I want to find where we can cut and make the money up first before we go to taxation. I was on a site decision-making council. I traveled to support. We had Jumpstart that worked before. It just wasn't supported. So I want to make sure that we reorganize and restructure and find the money we already have and then move towards these other options. I fully support it, and that will be one of my priorities when my administration takes over. But we have to stop wasting money the way we are and investing in BIPOC communities and our minorities and our communities. We have the money. We just need to make sure it gets to where it needs to go. Thank you.
Candidate Goddard.
Thank you. I do have a 3-year-old myself, so this is an issue that's important to me. It is true that Rep. Lee was the first one to come out with this and has a very detailed plan to fund it. I'm going to do something similar to what I did last night and pivot a little bit. One of my top priorities that I came out with first is to fund before, after, and summer school programs at the elementary, middle, and high school level for all those children. And the reason is because we know we have issues like carjacking, violent crimes, and shooting, and that's horrific that people lose their lives that way. But what a lot of people don't understand is that a large part of those people doing those violent crimes are young people. And that's very scary. They're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old children. And oftentimes they're committing that violence against other children that same age. One of my best friends, he was at risk of the streets, and he's told me that having a grandmother that made him do after-school programs to keep him off the streets was the key to his success today. He's one of the most successful people I know. And so that's something that's very important to me. I think we need to partner with the business, educational, nonprofit community in a similar way that this organization has allowed young people to moderate this debate. It helps them get a leg start into the civic engagement process, and I think ultimately leads to gainful employment. The schools themselves have a large ability to implement after-school programs themselves. They have a large ability to manage that curriculum. So I would use funding, nonprofit grants, work with community partners to make sure we can get that done. Thank you.
What is your position on public education, and what role would Metro government play in public education if you were mayor? We're going to start with candidate Harder.
So our education system, best I can tell, is that we've just kind of made up truths about that we want to believe getting to where we're at now. And because of that, people don't fully understand the things that they talk about. So, for example, people bring up the critical race thing, right? As if its CRT is not 100% graduate level legal study, right? Teaching your kids about, like, what happened in history is not, swaying things in a single direction. It was not biased, I should say. Yet we continue to push these biases. Honestly, it's not in those who consider themselves leaders' best interest for to have an intelligent, well thought out, well articulated civilization. Then we wouldn't be able to control it. People, they claim that their, programs are socialist, or claim that, communism, but they don't even understand the terms. So, first of all, I think the curriculum of Louisville Jcps is going to go to higher level studies, like some of the things that they offer in college, and I just think are fundamental to like that people should know, like economics and things like that. And another problem with our schools as a whole is this property tax in the schools that they are near or funded. That's over with. All the schools in Louisville Metro will fund all the schools in Louisville Metro.
And in the Molestina?
On this issue of public education, this is one of the areas that mostly interests me because of the fact that, and I want to make this clear and I'm going to repeat it twice, the problem is not the teachers. If you're a teacher here tonight, the problem is not the teachers. My sisters are teachers in the school system. The problem with the administration and with the board, because the outcomes that we're getting from the students are not the outcomes that we need. For over 20 years, I've worked in the community with students as a pastor, and there's nothing worse than when a parent comes to you, they're trying to get their child into high school, they decide to maybe go to a private school, but the child can't go in. They don't have the reading, the math, and the writing skills. And even worse, the parents that come someday with their child trying to apply for college, and the ACT scores of reading again, writing, and math are not there. So here's some young person who's trying to get into college, trying to better themselves, but the outcomes of the public education we have in our city is not where it needs to be at. So the city, what it needs to do is we need to work in that area. We need to work better to help out and encourage assessments, to work with tutoring programs, to work with colleges like U of L and other ones where they can have students who they can test in their areas of reading and writing before they get to that last year of school. And those are the type of things we need to do so that the students, when they graduate, are ready to advance. Thank you.
Candidate Reichman.
Yeah, I believe that our current system has actually failed a lot of people. Right now, we have schools that are well below anything in Kentucky, so they're obviously not getting it done. Busing, I think, is a huge issue, obviously, so we need to end busing altogether. People need to be part of the community, so if you have your community where you are, where you live, and we build those communities up, those schools can do a lot better, because if you can go to events, if you can go see your kids, if you can have a say. But the problem is the Jcps, the teachers union, is way too powerful. They control everything, and they don't give up any of their power. So you have no say as a parent, and that's what we need. We need more parent involvement in schools and PTAs. They need to be able to say they need to be able to say what's good for their child and what's not good for their child. So each school can be modified for the community. So it's built for the community, around the community, and with the community. And that way, everybody has a say, and that way their education is better.
While I agree, we certainly have ways to go. I actually support Dr. Polio. I support most of the school board members. From a metro government standpoint, I think the two words that stick out to me are commitment and communication. We need to have commitment and communication spearheaded by a mayor that will actually lead. My administration will return to a once-a-year sit-down in front of the school board and report on the city's related commitments to JCPS, and I would ask that once a year the superintendent would report on school district progress in a meeting at a city-run community center. I believe, as noted before, that we have to build an ecosystem built on the back of an exceptionally high-functioning city government led by a collaborative, transparent mayor with a much deeper relationship between the mayor and the superintendent. And from a metro standpoint, everything must be filtered through an equity lens.
Parish, right?
In 2019, I ran to be on our school board for District 4. I had Steve Imhoff, who was a long-standing school board member, support my campaign and help me. I now have Christopher Cole, who is my campaign manager, helping me run my campaign for mayor. I've also been a homeless parent who had 2 children graduate JCPS. I have 4 JCPS graduates, 2 that are still navigating the system. I've always said that there's missing voices on that school board. There's missing voices of the parents and teachers and staff and students, and I want to make sure that those voices get heard. JCPS already feeds tens of thousands of kids every day, which is often only keeping them from going hungry. JCPS already provides health care to thousands of kids. JCPS already offers after-school services to thousands of kids. As mayor, I'll make sure the city starts doing our part. We'll fund after-school activities for kids, we'll increase funding for jobs, programs for youth to make sure that they learn skills they need to succeed. We'll fund kindergarten readiness programs, and we'll make sure that there's public transit that connects families so they don't have to shoulder the burden of transportation. We'll crush the digital divide with municipal broadband. We'll work to expand translation services for our immigrant brothers and sisters. We'll work with our partners in organized labor to create more apprenticeships. And we'll support the push for universal pre-K as said before. People know I'll fight for JCPS. That's why I have so much support for the campaign. Thank you.
Candidate Robert? Well, I think first of all, we need to work to protect our public schools. So as a lobbyist, I'm used to following complex pieces of legislation, and those who have followed the Frankfurt session realize that now they've tried to pass a bill to take public school money to fund charter schools. Now, if you want to fund charter schools with private money, that's fine. But if you want to take it away from other public schools who are assigned those dollars, I have a big problem with that. I also have a big problem with the attacks on our public employees, including teachers. It was the Kentucky Education Association, the Kentucky State Fraternal Order Police, that was my union, who challenged the sewer bill that tried to strip the hard-earned pension benefits away from our teachers who earned it. We need to protect and support our teachers. They need to have good insurance. They need to have a pension. People get in public service because it's a calling, but it's a hard job, and they need reasons to stay. So I protect our schools, I protect our teachers. The other part is thinking outside the box a little. I think all of our students and all of our teachers and parents even realize that I think our curriculum is outdated. I'd like to see that modernized. Let's teach kids to do their taxes. Let's teach them how to change a tire. Let's teach them the life skills that they know they need to succeed in the modern world. And that's not the teacher's fault, the administrator's fault. I think we just need somebody to kickstart that conversation. We need to prepare our students for the 21st century. So I would be really looking forward to modernizing our public school curriculum.
I'm glad we're starting tonight with education, because as you all can hear tonight, this is clearly one of the issues that as candidates, it seems we all agree that we all need to take a larger role in strengthening public education across our city. And the question is, how do we do it? On the day I announced for mayor, I announced that I would create Louisville's first Department of Education. Accomplish more. And so collaborating with JCPS, with U of L, with Simmons College, with Evolve 502, with workforce development agencies, and supporting all of those great educational institutions throughout the city, we can strengthen education at all levels. We'll make universal pre-K a reality, as we just talked about, and then from there all the way through post-secondary education to workforce training. Louisville will have stronger education for everyone and anyone who's looking to learn and advance their skills. One way, for example, working with JCPS to support them is as JCPS begins to build new schools, like the one not too far from here that they're building next to the new YMCA. We can partner with them to help them develop community schools so that there the libraries are open to the neighborhood, the gyms are open to the neighborhood. Maybe we'll ask Norton, that sponsored this facility, to put a healthcare clinic in there to not just serve the students, but also the neighborhood. There are many ways we can partner to strengthen our educational institutions and buildings across the entire city.
What concerns, if any, do you have regarding the new student assignment plan, and how do you expect to partner with JCPS as they implement the new student assignment plan? Candidate Molestina, we'll start with you.
I know it's been a very difficult issue ever since I've been in Louisville over 40 years. This issue has always been around. The decision to try to do student assignment or busing, as we all know it, was made to try to bring some racial balance to things. What is the result of it? The result of it is children spending hours on a bus, going to different compounds, being away from the neighborhood, parents that can't go to speak to a teacher or talk with, just to be a children's event real quick because they can get off work quickly. That's the result we have right now. At the same time, what concerns me with the whole thing is what a lot of people are saying. What happens when we do go back to how things were? And schools in the areas where simply there's a different economic way of doing things get forgotten again. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge UCPS has right now is how do they go ahead and make that balance to where the people can stay in their neighborhoods, that those school systems you're not going to look down the road again and see a big, huge difference in what's happening and how they're going to be taken care of. So it's a huge challenge that the mayor's office has working with the JCPS to make sure that the schools that are areas that are struggling are not forgotten.
Candidate Reisman.
So I don't necessarily believe that these schools are forgotten. I think that the programs are actually made to keep people down, right? So they're underfunded or whatever. They're literally just to keep people down. So what we need to do is that everybody should have their own school. You should be in your community where your school is. Build your community up, like I've said before. You know, community is one of the biggest things. So why don't we build up communities, right? Why don't we put in, like I've said before, we need to put in, you know, grocery stores, fresh food. We need to put in all these services in the poor neighborhoods so that way they can build themselves up, they can make their own decisions. But we can't just go in and do that. We can't just say, all right, we're going to do this. We need to go in and ask everybody what they want, and the community has to be involved. Because if the community is not involved, then it doesn't work. So, schools, I totally believe that we should have local schools, and where you are is where you go to school, right? And that way, parents are involved, teachers are involved, you have more of a say, you can go to events, you can go to all these things. So, you know, I'm for everything with JCPS being a local school, but I think we have to build the communities up and stop saying that we don't have the money because they have the money.
Candidate Benjamin.
Well, just to give a bit of context to the question, Louisville is the 5th most segregated city in America. And I want to quote Michelle Penix from a recent op-ed, this piece in the Courier Journal. We cheer being able to attend by choice schools in our own neighborhood. The problem is that those schools were intentionally ignored for the last 50 years and the urban core dismantled for the last 20. So we now have schools in the black community that no one would choose for education. I think it's interesting hearing people on this panel and others that have talked about this particular situation simply because if we're not making economic gains and contributions in marginalized communities, we're simply perpetuating the same segregation that has milked our city dry. It's also interesting to me reading Olivia Carruth's report yesterday that there was an outcry from parents in the Highlands, and that has now prompted JCPS to change their own proposed school boundaries recently. So we're not only sliding back because affluent neighborhoods don't like the student assignment plan, we are now simply saying, build up your own community, which is the problem. That is what we've been hearing for the last 50 years. Until we do something different and tear down the walls of segregation, everything you hear tonight is going to be more of the same.
I got so you were saying for the last 50 years that the system has been like that. Have we seen it because there's not been a Republican candidate as mayor? I'll be that the policies are holding basically. Democratic policies are basically meant to hold people to government programs. So, you know, they keep them down so that way they can keep government programs, which keeps government large.
So I'll tell you someone who grew up in a marginalized community, we don't look at it as Democrat and Republican. We look at it as white people.
Senator Parish, y'all got me following that. I love that Brother Finley always gives the historical perspective, but as a mother with 6 children and 4 graduates, it's important that I focus on the solutions. And the decision has been made by JCPS to do this, and so it's our job to fill in the gaps, like many of us already do in the work that we do. We're always filling in the gaps because there's no one solution without the right partnerships to to make sure that it happens. And as I've said that, when I ran for school board, one of the things I said is that none of our children should feel a difference when they walk into a school, no matter what zip code it's in. All buildings should be brought up to code. It should feel nice. I've talked to children in Atherton, young students who told me that they visited other schools and saw the staircases falling apart. That's something that we can work in partnership as a community to fix. We have to be what we didn't have when we were growing up. So that means I want to make sure young people are in decision-making positions to help us. We got to stop just saying, oh, we're making this for them, and let them be a part of the decision-making. And as mayor, it's my job to make good appointments and to check in with the community and the city and our county to make sure we're doing our job. So we will do that regularly, and my accountability team will be with me throughout my administration, and they will help make sure we keep those things in check. We have a city budget that if we stop wasting money, we can invest to fill in the gaps that JCPS will need. It will take us working together. We get there together. Thank you. Candidate Rabbit.
So I have read some articles, student assignment plan. I have not myself read the fine print, and knowing from my lobbying days, that's very important. So I won't comment specifically on the fine print, but I will, like other candidates, talk about my general feelings. I agree. We do have a very racially, economically, and socially segregated city. And I know from being a cop, just because you're a cop doesn't mean you have it the same as other cops. There's harder areas to patrol. There's easier areas to patrol. I think that our schools are the same well, and I've heard talk of teachers who have more experience going to the schools that are, quote, easier maybe to teach at, or, quote, better schools. And I think that's a problem, because then you have a cluster of the youngest, most inexperienced teachers in the areas that need the most help. They don't have the experience or the skills yet developed to work at those schools. So not to be repetitious, but I think we need to support our teachers. I'd like to see maybe some sort of financial incentive for our more experienced teachers to stay in the schools that need the most help. We have a substitute teacher and a regular teacher shortage because it doesn't pay to be a teacher anymore, and it's a hard job, like I've said. So I'd like to see our teachers supported in areas that have behavioral issues. We know it's sometimes only a few kids who can disrupt an entire class. If class sizes are too large, we'll support our teachers, get more teachers involved so we can make their jobs easier.
Candidate Greenberg.
I agree with what Ms. Parish Wright was just saying about how every public school should be a place where you want to be, where you're excited to be. That's a strong, great building filled with wonderful teachers. And I agree with what Reverend Finley said earlier, that I too support Dr. Polio. And the way that I think we can accomplish these goals, the way we can support Dr. Polio and JCPS, and the way that we can address this issue is with more fully funding our public school system. We can do that as leaders in the city, whether on Metro Council, whether we're mayor, or whether we're any other citizen here, is by reaching out to Frankfurt. And as mayor, I think it's critically important that the mayor of Louisville develop a stronger relationship with those in Frankfurt. Right now, that relationship is frayed. And yes, the reality is that, or the likely reality is that the Republicans will control the state legislature for the near-term future. We have to find ways, even if we disagree on certain issues, but we can find ways to work together. And so advocating for more funding for public education so that schools in lower income communities that have been overlooked for our entire lifetime, can get more funding will be an absolute priority of mine as well.
I have a question for Mr. Greenberg. You've talked about the Department of Education. As one who sat on the steering committee for Evolve 502, how would the Department of Education not simply be another layer in Metro government as it relates to what they're already doing, and how would that connect with the current Board of Education?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I'm not looking to create more bureaucracy. What I'm doing is looking to bring people together, to bring organizations together. The city government does not need to be in the business of micromanaging JCPS or even managing JCPS. It needs to be in the business of supporting JCPS, supporting Evolve 502, expanding Evolve 502, so whereas right now it's only providing funding for two-year education to JCTC or Simmons College, let's expand that program so we can raise more public and private funding so we can support 4-year educations at Simmons College, at U of L, at JCTC. And so to me,
Candidate Greenberg, your time is up.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know. Department of Education, what does your Department of Education do?
It will be the point person to do that on a daily basis, to provide that support, to work with the private sector to bring in more support, and also be take the lead on making universal pre-K a reality.
Like Evolve 502?
Candidate Finley, we have to move on to the next person. Candidate Harden.
Well, I will just say this, funding, we can raise the funding all we want. I mean, is it gonna go to the schools that need it? See, it's not a funding issue, it's a will issue, because like, J-Town schools are fine, or, the schools there are fine, not all the schools are fine, because they pick and choose where, both people are assigned and where the money goes, and that's over. All of us need to fund the youth of our next generation all together. Like, I don't know, like, what this is gonna be, like, we create another department, we're not creating another department, that's just an excuse to pay other people money, and all the money that we got, and we've spent in all this time, and we've done nothing to the communities they don't want to do anything about. And it's because Republican or Democrat, because they're both fabulous, they've turned their back on all of us. And so, I mean, you can dream up all these convoluted ways we're going to do it, we can just do it. Like, as mayor and the budgetary committee, we will figure out exactly how some schools will need more help than others. So it's not going to be an issue of like, oh, well, why did this school get, so much less funding than this school? Because the other school, has been stuck in poverty for 30, 40 years, while the other one's just been affluent off the property value. It's like, we are about communities. I agree, we need the community, but the community is all of us, not J-Town, not Louisville, Fairfield, not, I can't think of any other word right now. And that's my plan. My plans are simple, just right to the point. Let's just get it done. You need the will for it, and I've got it.
I have a question. I think we forgot, I don't know if you've read about maybe 6 months ago, the Courier Journal spent quite a number of days putting out a series of articles about Mayoral High School and Iroquois High School. Only about a mile apart, but worlds apart. One school, no kid wants to go to. The other school that all the kids want to go to. In the same city, so close you can almost walk to them. Pray can run to them. I had to get in there one prayer about that. But how can in the same city have a school that does so good, and in the same city, a school that does so bad? I can't sit here and tell you I have the answer. But I can tell you the parents that are sending their kids to school that's not good, it's just not happening.
Before COVID, Louisville's eviction rates were 3 times higher than the national average, and approximately 6,000 Jcps students were homeless. The Louisville Housing Needs Assessment determined that more than 30,000 units of housing are needed for individuals at the lowest income levels in Louisville. The cost for this is $3.5 billion. What plans, if any, do you have to increase affordable housing, particularly those at the lowest income levels? We're starting with candidate Reichman.
I would say that Louisville desperately needs housing across the map, right, for all income levels. And basically, if there's a need, a market shortage, then basically it's going to increase the demand. So then therefore, lower income and affordable housing is not going to be able to get there. As far as there's a ton of regulations, red tape and all this, well, as mayor, you can just get rid of that red tape. You can get rid of the regulations. We need to review the policies and the hurdles that are made. We have vacant lots, we have vacant buildings, we have all these places that can have affordable housing that Louisville owns. However, we don't use it because, like I said, the Democratic policy is to actually not allow that because they need more programs. So if they hold people down, they're basically going to need more programs. Think that I'm wrong. Everybody's saying, it's been 53 years since there's been a Republican. It's been these policies that are going to be changed, and they're going to help everybody. What mayor hasn't told you guys that everything's going to change? It's going to be better. What have we seen? We haven't seen any information that it is, and there's actually more need and more need for affordable housing. Well, why is that?
Candidate Finley.
So I'm going to answer the question on what the actual...
Sorry. I think it's very important before we go further that we all come to the consensus that the Republican Party is the furthest thing from conservative and the Democrats are the furthest thing from liberal as parties are concerned. So we need to start listening to people, like regardless right or left, because they have screwed us all. They've held hands and ran us all into, the end of this country. So focusing on Republicans or Democrats, the R beside our names is ridiculous. So, Candidate Rice, would you like to respond?
I would say that it's easy to say that it is ridiculous, and that, I agree with on both sides that we've had some issues, but we've had 53 years of straight Democrat with no proof that it's getting better, right?
Look, I mean, how many of the Republican administrations and the presidents that we had and nothing's got better? What I'm saying is that I don't think a Republican is going to make any difference. No, I think you would, absolutely, but I don't think a Republican would, and I think it's a bad idea to push people in that direction. Candidate Finley.
Sure. So, affordable housing. From my website, finleyformayor.com, you'll see this information on there. My plan is here. We need income and workforce housing with up to at least 15% units at 30% AMI. For those who don't know what AMI is, that's area median income. And I believe we need to place housing in hubs near major employers. I'm the one that has presented that I want to go after absentee landlords on a property reclamation. I want to do a rental rate freeze. I want to do a property tax freeze for lower income ownership. One of the issues that we have in Louisville is not just an affordable housing issue, we have a segregation issue. So there are areas in our city that continue to vote down affordable housing in those areas because when you hear affordable housing, you hear criminality. You hear things that are myths and racist tropes. We've got to deal with those narratives. So it's not just affordable housing. We've got to make sure, as a mayor, we're going into these areas and we're speaking directly to those who live in those areas to tear down those racist agendas. Because if we do not do that, we're going to see a bunch of affordable housing in different areas and we're going to stay segregated the way we've been for the last 10 years.
Again, I keep telling these gentlemen that I can be mayor and they can work with me. Finley can give the history, he can go back to being a cop, and they can do what they need to do.
I'm not doing that.
So, quickly, my plan is I've been someone who's navigated homelessness in this city, and I was able to successfully do that through a series of successful transitions. Some people need case management. It's not just about having the units, it's also having the mindset, the training. So I want to incentivize more affordable housing in every zip code, rehouse, rehab, repurpose all these buildings, assess what property Jcps owns, Louisville Metro government owns, and see how we can work together. Work with owners, renters, developers, Louisville Metro Housing Authority. And I've done this before to help set up the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I was on the Housing Action Team as one of the only people who was directly impacted by houselessness. And then I joined the Homeless Coalition Continuum of Care Board to make sure that there was a person like me there to help make those decisions on where that funding goes. We need more directly impacted people in position to help make these decisions. It's a lifetime of transitions that help people be able to maintain. Case management is important where needed. Training for all of our offices, making sure that people that work for us are housed, and then working throughout that. We have people who work for Walmart and all these other places who don't have affordable housing, and people who are in jeopardy of losing it. I'm ready to get to work.
So you mentioned the 6,000 homeless kids who attend Jcps. To me, that's unconscionable. It's part of my public platform stated on my website to change the definition of homelessness for them by giving them homes. They should have priorities, so should the parents of children who have school-age children. Now, that being said, I take a slightly multi-pronged approach to this issue. Affordable housing gets a lot of attention, but the fact is that according to the Louisville Housing Affordable Trust Fund numbers for 21 to 22 that I looked at, only about 3,500 houses were worked on or built in that time period, and that's only about 10%. So that's a good long-term solution that we need to keep working at. But the real problem is that people can't afford their homes. We don't just need a living wage. I believe in the union's ability. I'd be a mayor that championed public and private sector unions and only get to a living wage, but to get retirement and insurance benefits that people need. Because affordable housing costs is just one part of someone's budget. We need people to be able to afford the lives they have.
Senator Greenberg.
You're right, that's a great question, Josiah, and you raised a very important issue facing the city. Over 30,000 units short of affordable housing. And the day I announced I was running for mayor, I announced that in my first term, working together with the public and private sectors, we would build at least 15,000 new affordable housing units. What that means to me is, like Reverend Finley was saying, these need to be across the entire city. Good paying jobs, improve public transportation networks. And it doesn't just need to be rental, but it also needs to be home ownership, so we can put more families and on the pathway to home ownership, help them create equity in their home and start to build and pass down generational wealth. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now to address this with the $388 million that's coming to us from the federal government. The city government has already allocated some of this money towards affordable housing, and I commend them. But I encourage the city government to invest even more, because that $3.5 billion figure, Josiah, that you mentioned, doesn't need to be all city money. We can use some of these monies and leverage it with other private sources, with other state programs, with other federal programs, and use that to build these new affordable housing units across the whole city. And the final thing is as we're building the new affordable housing units, we have a new opportunity to work with healthcare providers like Norton just recently announced with LDG, work with educational system. Let's put the universal pre-K when we create it. Let's have the pre-K child care centers in the housing complexes. That's what we need to do, is bring it all together so that people have affordable housing.
I have a challenge, Senator Greenberg. It's a friendly challenge. It is, I was told I was speaking too loudly, but it is that someone like me has given up everything to be just focused on being mayor. Why can't you just focus on being a developer that you are in a developer-strong city? You don't have to be mayor to do any of that you're trying to do. What difference will you make as mayor? Because we need somebody that's focused on the people's needs. We have plenty of development. We don't have enough people focusing on the agenda to improve the lives of Louisville.
That's exactly what I hope you're trying to do, Shanika, and I appreciate that question, because I think when I was thinking about my next chapter in life, I thought about the city that I care so much about, ways that I could give back. I thought that using my professional and personal experiences, I could serve the city well by being mayor. And the way that we will do that is by creating a diverse, strong team of people that are empowered to do things like build 15,000 new affordable housing units, to make universal pre-K a reality. These are all things that I've experienced doing in my previous career and in my personal life, and that I'm excited about bringing to the public sector as well.
Senator Harding. When I hear about new development and affordable housing, I think in units and apartments. And the number one way that we build wealth in this country is through assets. And yet you're going to get more affordable housing that's eventually going to become dilapidated, as many sections of our towns are. And then what? Give off us a new, more affordable housing? Like, no. We have entire neighborhoods. Forget about redevelopment, but let's restore and reinvent Louisville. Like, government properties that can be saved, and the safe be renovated and done. The ones that can't be broke down, and we'll have new businesses or attract people. But like, it doesn't matter how many balconies you build on a floor that the bottom floor is flooded. It's going to be pretty there, but eventually it's going to bring everybody down. So this redevelopment thing, and no offense, Greenberg, but you're a businessman. That means your first priority is money, and that's the problem. Money cannot be our first priority. So, like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in there, I'm going to get people to get these houses going. I'm going to employ people around the city that are trades and crafts like electricians and carpentry and stuff like that. And we're going to take these offenders of petty theft or whatever, they've been locking people up, leaving them in jail because they can't pay bail, and we're going to have them learning trades while they restore these buildings. And then these assets, we'll find a way, we're going to give them to people so that particularly the people that have been hurt the most, then they will have these assets to move forward.
Senator Moleskin.
comes up all the time. But I think the biggest thing that we talk about is we want to impress you with saying nice things. We want to impress you with saying we're going to build 15,000 units. Do you know that right now the city of Louisville has close to $100 million to do affordable housing, and that barely makes 1,000 units? So when we're talking about doing 15,000, we're talking the budget of almost the whole city. I understand they're talking about getting with developers. So we missed the point. And what's the point? The point is we have 30,000 plus families that need affordable housing because the median income they have is so low. We're looking at the wrong issue. We have to look at ways to get that median income higher so that the affordable housing is not in the hands of all these groups, all these families. Families should have a better way. And those are the type of things the city needs to work with these partners. We have to do the things that has been talked about here, but we don't need to inflate and say we're going to make all these changes and make all these things happen, because it's not going to happen. As I said last night in another forum, 4 years later we'll be talking about the same thing, we'll be talking about the same number of units that we need, and we're not addressing them. The issue and the problem is getting those median incomes higher through creating wealth, through creating different types of jobs for our city, so that there we don't have that need such great of affordable housing.
Many West End residents are rightfully concerned about the TIF. What specifically will your administration do to ensure that neighborhoods can be invested in without displacing residents? Candidate Finley, we'll start with you.
Well, the thing about the TIF, and I want to make sure that we're very clear about this, renters who lack protection in the law. The Kentucky legislature passed this year's arrangement for the TIF are especially vulnerable. The vast majority of people in the West End are renters. The TIF benefits homeowners. So TIF, number one, will not benefit those who are renting. The second issue with the TIF is that on paper it looks wonderful, but there is no substantial report that shows that a TIF in any city has not led to displacement or gentrification. Number three, you need to look at who's behind the TIF, who started the TIF. All of these things are very important, and last but not least, our city has a cultural issue as it relates to transparency. Too much of the TIF was done behind closed doors, and the community was dragged into a situation with a lack of information. And to my great friend, Ms. Parish, right, the reason why history is important, because if you don't know where you've been, you do not know where you're going. And the issue is, we've had the wool pulled over our eyes for years. And people need to wake up and see that this pattern that's existed in Louisville for all this time, it will continue to happen, but the language that will be used will be new and shiny. You need someone as a mayor who's going to tell the truth, who's going to fight for you, and knows the history.
Candidate Parish, right?
He said we're going to be nice, but I do know the history. I just like to take action. I don't get caught in the weeds of things. I'm a solutions-based person, and I want to focus on what needs to be done. I have these notes here because I have so much to say about these things, but I want to be clear. The only reason to create a TIF is to hide where taxpayer money is going. Everything you do in a TIF, you can do through regular budgeting process, which is done in full view of the public. A TIF often hides the most important elements of this budgeting process behind closed doors, where real estate developers, corporations, business elites, and their cronies in City Hall decide the fate of the neighborhoods where I live and where all of our tax dollars are spent. You simply cannot be for a TIF and transparency at the same time. TIFs are inherently untransparent. This lack of transparency is what makes them so attractive to people that want to profit by moving residents out of their own communities. Anyone who says otherwise is either extremely naive or intentionally misleading you. Many property owners do not live in our neighborhoods, especially the West End, and it has over 60% that are renters, and most of the owners do not live there. Racism is embedded. We all have learned about redlining and the things that have happened. TIF won't fix redlining. TIF won't fix our housing crisis. TIF will not fix the lives of West Louisvillians, and I know that, and I've birthed children right here in the West End, not far from this address. So I want to do things that matter, and I want to support something that's going to be viable. Thank you.
Candidate Gravitt.
I'm highly skeptical of TIFs and their use based on their history. Now, I don't want to bash everyone involved. Senator Gerald Neal, who I actually got my first start in politics with, he was a professor at U of L, wound up interning with him in Frankfurt. he's always been a champion for black people and for the poor and for the working class, and he was instrumental in getting the TIF passed. So I respect that he did that work, and I know he's a champion for what matters. But that being said, I'm highly skeptical. One of the TIFs used $110 million to build the Omni Hotel, $10 million to build the Marriott, and then when the pandemic downturn, we actually owed money on that based on how that was organized. So if we can do those things, we don't have a money problem, we don't have a know-how problem, we have a priorities problem. Why can't we build grocery stores in the West End and do things by more traditional forms of investment? I also share my candidate's suspicions. There's too much red tape, there's too much fine details, there's too much behind the scene work. Let's invest more traditionally. Got 30 seconds here, I might say something else. I'm good, thank you.
Candidate Greenberg.
The West End Opportunity Partnership has the potential to be a powerful and transformative program for the 9 neighborhoods of West Louisville. Because it has the opportunity where right now, where the tax dollars are going to Frankfurt, and we're relying on the state legislature to make decisions about how our tax dollars are used. This West End Opportunity Partnership gives the locally controlled board, which includes 9 members representative of West Louisville neighborhoods, the opportunity to reinvest this money directly in their neighborhoods as opposed to letting the state legislature decide where that goes. But let me be clear, this program is far from perfect. And so I've been advocating for changes to this program. First, we need to protect residents of West Louisville. There are homeowner protections currently in there if you're an owner, but they need to be improved. So it's not just a refund of your property taxes, but it's a credit or you don't, or it's just a freeze. We also, as Pastor Finley said, we need to protect renters so they're not priced out of their home. We need more neighborhood representation on the board than currently exists. And we need to go after out-of-state landlords that are increasing rents too high and are creating unsafe and unfit living conditions. We've all read the stories about things that are going on in that area, and we need to be strong advocates for safer and more fit living spaces for folks that are in need.
So we only get 2 of those?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna say no.
Candidate Harden.
So, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm like, what is a TIF? And as I go down here and listen to all of them, it sounds like a pretty bad idea. So, let's just not do that. How about that? Okay. But, I mean, these investments in the communities, it's like, we can do that. It's very simple. You just go, like shit, I mean, we even have a blueprint. They redlined a bunch of districts. Let's fund those districts for a few years, kind of reverse some of that issue. I mean, you got gangrene on your foot, but they're like, should I get my hair done? Like, no, fix the foot. Like, good Lord. No, that's what I like about Skyler. Like, you know, my boy just is like, well, 37, I don't know. But see, that's what we need, is like a normal person. If any of y'all think y'all come here and be great at this, then, like, hats off to you. But I feel like it's got to be normal people. It can't be talking about, we got to do this, we got to do that. No, this is what we're going to do. Here's a straightforward plan. Let's get it done. So, tips out the window. You know, it's called, you know, I'm sorry, I've been thinking the whole time of like what TIFF stood for, but I couldn't think of anything meaningful. So that's my thing. Yeah, any of that red tape, any of that stuff that is clearly used to disguise, you know, transactions and, you know, less than ethical deals, it's just gone. Like, I'm done with it. I'm not gonna cut right through it. Thank you.
Candidate Molestina.
I think you heard enough about TIFs, I think, this night. Well, last night, if you looked at the news, you already saw people concerned with this issue. I agree with, there's nothing to repeat all what Mr. Finley and Ms. Parish said. I agree. Lack of transparency, there has to be some more openness in these things here. The bottom line is we're trying to do something good, but I think the people in the neighborhoods know what they need, and the things that have to be open and clear is what the things we need to do with our city for the neighborhoods that we have. Thank you.
Candidate Reisman.
TIFs should definitely be used sparingly. I mean, they can affect, with the economy change, they can be very bad for whole communities. We need more community involvement. We need more, you know, traditional investments. Well, my question, I guess, since I'm, you know, basically the TIFs have already been run down, is for Mr. Greenberg here is, You know, he's talking about tips and investments and all these things, and a lot of his donors are from out-of-state corporations. So the mayor actually decides, you know, where investments go. Well, where do those investments go, right? So he's going to zone things so that way he can get his buddies in here from wherever, Arkansas, Walmart, Walton's, you know. Not you, another neighbor. But that's the thing. So we need to have community involvement, right? We need to have where we have grocery stores, fresh food, and the community has to have a say in what's going on. The tips, they just don't work.
What is your economic development strategy, and how will it impact the lives of Black residents in Louisville? Candidate Parish, right, we'll start with you.
All right, I don't want to be too loud. My economic strategy is to do everything that we're talking about is from root causes. And we need to work with our nonprofits to alleviate the ongoing effects of it and to help our Louisvillians deal with the symptoms of it. And really, if you tie back a lot of our work, it's connected to doing that, even our work here at this table. It is important that we assess what's working and what's not working, and that's why I plan to have monthly meetings to go over that. I plan to get in there and then within the first 100 days do a full understanding of what's working, what's not. I'm already talking to people who currently work for Louisville Metro and people who used to work for Louisville Metro government, and they all say the same things. The same things that's been said here tonight about red tape, about having secret agendas, about people taking care of each other and not the city. Those are the things that we're dealing with and have impacted areas like the West End as well as the South End, Newburgh and Portland and other areas as well. So I want to level the playing field and build more equity into our city and how funding is dispersed. I think it's a shame that Elder Serve has to close its doors, yet it was just announced that millions of dollars are being given away. I want to make sure that those kind of things don't happen. You fail our seniors, you fail our youth, you're not going to make this city better. So drawn back to the drawing board and restructuring Metro government is the first way to go to address our issues.
Candidate Geraldo. I've already touched on a couple points tonight, which I'll go over again. You know, Louisville is more than just downtown. It's more than just Bardstown Road and Frankfurt Avenue. If we can build Omnis and Marriotts, we can invest in places that are historically neglected, and we need to do that. I also touched on education and before after summer school programs for our kids. I think that's very important to getting them the skills they need to be successful. Now, from my experience as a lobbyist, or let me back up and say unions as well. I'm a strong supporter of public and private sector unions. We can bring all the jobs we want. We can bring all the economic development we want. And if we don't have strong union representation, then those jobs can be just as low paying as some of the jobs we have now. We need workers to stand up for themselves. They know they can express themselves. There's no better advocate than the people doing the job to know what it takes to make them want to stay in that job. My experience at the legislative level, Louisville does not do a good job sending lobbyists up to represent the interests of our city. The Chamber of Commerce, the Kentucky League of Cities, and the Kentucky Association of Counties run this state, and they have teams of lobbyists. Louisville only had a couple lobbyists at the time. There's a tax on unemployment benefits. There's a tax on pension benefits. There's a tax on cost of living. There's a tax on our schools. There's a tax on our income tax rate that's going to show if they have been successful with drastically reduce the services. So we can wave a magic wand here at the local level. If we don't have strong representation in Frankfurt standing up for our citizens, then all that's going to be eroded very quickly.
Candidate Greenberg.
Economic development and building for the future and creating more good-paying career path jobs for working families has to be a top priority of any mayor. My economic development strategy will start with focusing on local businesses, large businesses, but also small businesses and entrepreneurs, as opposed to always trying to attract out-of-state businesses to locate here that often don't. Let's focus on the people who are already here in Louisville. Let's provide them with the support they need. Ask entrepreneurs and business owners and people who work in businesses what they need. Let's, as in the Path Forward, we mentioned the Path Forward document. One of the things that I strongly support that's in the Path Forward document is a focus on supporting more black-owned businesses. Let's make sure that there's a black-owned and black-led bank Let's support more black foundations throughout our entire community. These are things that the mayor should be working on throughout the entire community. Let's also work with our local labor unions. There's so much that we can do to invest in workforce training programs, to get more people trained for new jobs today and jobs of tomorrow. And finally, we should be a city that remote workers want to live in regardless of where they work. To do that, we need to be a safe city, we need to be a clean city, and we need to be an inclusive city.
Senator Harden. So my economic development ideas really don't just restore and renovate. I haven't beat that horse to death, it feels like. So one of the things that I keep hearing people brought up is like, you can't do legislation. And I thought about it too, like, Colin, you can't just change legislation hand over foot. You're right. But I would be a nightmare to Frankfurt if I had to be. Like, this city's mine, like, I would get the target buses and everybody wants to come with me, let's go. We're going to Frankfurt. And I'll put so much political pressure on them, they will beg for mercy. I mean, please stop. It'd be fun. It will be fun. I would love nothing more. I don't care if it's I don't care nothing. I would love to tear the establishment down. So, again, all these things, like, how we're going to do it, we're just going to do it. We have the money, it can be done. Like, Russia's not sitting there like, how do we deal with Ukraine? They could get it done. They just did. We could just get this done. It's silly that we're giving all these complex policies to how we're going to take $1 billion and fix this city. You know how much $1 billion is? No one has ever seen $1 billion anything. Maybe grains of sand, but that doesn't matter. I'm just simple, cut, straight to the point. I will take every single person, everybody who's free on, January 2nd. Yeah, we'll get second. One day apiece in the new year, and then we'll go ring hell.
The different things that have been talked about bringing jobs is important, but I think that the thing that we need the most is the term that I keep repeating is create wealth. We have to create wealth in the neighborhoods that don't have the wealth. We have to take our city departments that we have, like Shamika said a while ago, look at those departments, look to see what's bloated, look to see what's not being used properly, and then get those departments that can bring wealth to these different neighborhoods, the training, the different things that are needed, bring those things because that's what's needed. With those jobs themselves, different things will come, but it's the neighborhoods that are forgotten, it's the people that don't have access to those types of careers or different things like that we need to bring to, and those are the type of things that city government needs to do so that will bring up the wealth in our city.
Candidate Reichman.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that what we need to do is we need to build up any of the poor communities. I think that they always say that you're only as strong as your weakest link. Well, you guys aren't the weakest link that live there, but economy-wise, yes. So what we need to do is build those up so that they can produce and that they can have a vibrant economy, because every single place, Shiloh, everywhere around the town, I've worked at 18 Dogwood for 4 years, and businesses that are buy here, pay here lots, which a liquor store, cash and check thing everywhere. We need to get grocery stores. We need to get things where locally owned businesses, where business owners have a say in what's going on. We need to invest in innovation and technology, and it needs to start with entrepreneurs, black-owned entrepreneurs, and as well as any other person needs to. Basically, we need to have innovation so that way we can come up with creative ways for better housing, for better jobs, for better businesses, and we all need to work together to do it. We need to work with universities. We work with Louisville and other universities, and that way we can get in a more diverse talent. We get an international talent as well. But I believe that the main thing is we need to deal with it in innovation.
Candidate Finley, you have a response?
So I want to answer the question and come with original ideas, because what you're hearing tonight is theory and nobody's putting meat on the bones. So for me, economic development starts with investing in people in this city. I was the first candidate to come out, and the only candidate to talk about universal basic income in this city. I was the only candidate that came out first talking about fair free transit. I was the only candidate that came out first in terms of universal pre-K. I'm the only candidate that's talked about the NBA deal that I want to see done. When you talk about black-owned businesses, another history lesson. In 1969, black people were 12% of the population. We owned 4.5% of black businesses. Now in 2022, we are 22% of the population, but we're only 2.5% of the entrepreneurs in the city. That is on purpose. So we need a mayor that is going to do the equitable thing. Equity and equality are two different things. Equity means we are going to zero in on black businesses and give them things and give wraparound services and provide the kinds of help that will help to bring business owners, black business owners, into the forefront. Again, if you've been a businessman in this community, if you've been a 40-year politician in this community, you should not be talking about now what you're going to do as mayor when you could have been doing this for the last 50 years.
Senator Hart, you have a response? Certainly, my brother. My campaign manager is, I support UBI, I'm always doing that. But I was wondering, how did you propose the paperwork? Pay for UBI.
If you go to www.friendlyformayor.com, you can get not only that plan, you can see several different options.
But, guys, you know how I don't bring up notes, I don't prepare, I want to hear shut off.
We know, we can tell tonight, absolutely. So, we know, there's not a note inside. So, when you talk about, for instance, fare free transit, if you look on the website, I've talked about what they make at the fare box. That particular income is a small income relative to what we could set aside in our budget to bring fare free transit to particular census tracts. The money's there. My friend Mr. Greenberg talks about the $388 million is coming to
Candidate, and there's time for responding.
I was just getting started. Well, afterwards, go to my website, and you'll use that for the next debate.
Oh, here you go, I got you.
Since the protests following the killing of Breonna Taylor, many Louisville residents have called for significant police reform. What do you believe to be the #1 issue with policing in Louisville? How would you address it? Candidate Braddock, will start with you.
So let me say this. Most people don't understand that officers have a lot of opinions about what's wrong with the police department and how to change it. But they will be fired if they try to talk out. That's one of my main platform points is First Amendment rights for all public employees. If they can criticize the department and talk about what it's like to be a police officer without the fear of getting fired. I think it's the single quickest, easiest, cheapest way to build community trust, which is what we're hungry for. That being said, I was a political science major, I minored in economics, I became a police officer. Even going through the academy, it took me a couple of years to learn what it was really like to be a police officer, what the ins and outs of the problems were, how we interface with the community and the court systems, what our social services were. When I went to Frankfurt, I learned even more about what's wrong. So I say this kindly as a starting point, but most of the public simply does not know what the real problems of the police department are. And that's why I'm positioned as an insider to know. It's almost too much to begin, just even to begin to talk about it, we kind of have to break through a lot of concrete that's set. We have a lot of citizen groups that want to do a good job and get involved in the process, but just don't know what the real problems are. I think the thing I described would be the main thing. The other thing is, and I run out of time here, can I add 30 seconds for my rebuttal to my response?
Yes.
I'm a rebuttal myself. So, professional standards unit. I left the police department because I was more afraid of getting fired or indicted for doing the job the citizens expected me to do than I was afraid of getting hurt on the street. So we have a mayor that's kind of cowardly and won't let officers do the aggressive kind of police work they need to get violent criminals off the street. So we need to change that process. But even if we do get criminals off the streets, it's the courts that continually slap violent offenders on the wrist. It's only a small percentage of our population that does most of the violent crime, and they learn continually that they can get away with that crime because the officers do their jobs and the courts don't follow through.
Thank you. Candidate Greenberg.
I believe that Louisville should have an LMPD, the best police department in America. And what that means to me is one that's the best trained, the most trusted, and the most transparent. In Louisville, we expect and deserve nothing less. The way we get there is by working with our officers to create a new culture, to support them with what they need to have 300 new police officers so that we can focus on community policing. It really focuses on preventing crime and solving the most violent crimes. Right now, one of our challenges is with our violent crimes and the homicide. Last year, nearly 200 people were killed in senseless gun violence. Nearly 2/3 of those murders remain unsolved. That's one of the big challenges. But we can't simply police ourselves to safety in Louisville. We must do more. We must invest in programs like group violence intervention. We must invest more in mental health professionals, in mental health services and organizations, so people can get the mental health treatment that they need before they commit crime. And we also need to invest in the root causes of poverty, something that we've been speaking a lot about tonight, and that I know that we all agree on needs to be done immediately.
Kenny Greenberg. I think. I'm going to give you 30 seconds because I don't feel like you got to the core of the question, which was, what is the chief issue with police?
I'm sorry, I thought that I was answering that. My answer to that question is that I think we need 300 additional officers that can really then implement community policing, which means being in the neighborhoods, working with clergy, working with other neighborhood leaders, working with victims of crimes and their families, working with formerly incarcerated individuals, so that we as a community can do a better job of preventing crime and not just responding to the way too much crime that's happening in every corner of our city right now.
Candidate Harden.
Let me ask you a question. Has a cop ever been behind you and you feel potentially safe? No. So I don't know why more police is going to make the neighborhood safe. No, anything that makes it look more like a war zone. I've said it 1,000 times. Drugs being illegal is the problem. The decriminalization, Oregon's already done it, so we're behind the bus. Oregon decriminalized all drugs. Nothing happened there. Nothing has helped but improve. Even the Breonna Taylor situation happened over drugs. I mean, what has happened to the black community since the 60s? The war on drugs. I mean, we have to stop prosecuting people for what I consider a constitutional violation. You have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And who are any of us to tell somebody else how to pursue that happiness? Instead, if you want to get high, get high. But we should not lock you in a jail cell for the better part of 20 years with actual violent criminals, and then send you out on the streets where felonies stop you from voting, stop you from getting jobs, and then expect people to just rehabilitate yourself, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And that's the mentality. Cops are not the problem. It's what the cops are entitled to do that is the problem. So, under my jurisdiction, the cops will no longer harass people for non-violent drug offenses. And if that way, violence is the only crime that people should be locked up for. Only thing. Outside of that, everything can be handled civilly or with community service. We've got a lot of that to go around. Thank you.
To answer the question specifically, the number one issue with police reform is trust. The trust, I'm talking all these, especially this past 2 years, with different people to deal with these issues with police. Communities don't trust police. They don't trust them. There's not communication. The police in many areas where the high crime areas, they are there when the problems are there, but they're not there when things are regular. And until you can go ahead and have trust through the different people that precincts, the people that are those areas, the neighborhood community leaders, to have regular monthly meetings or quarterly meetings, whatever it may be, but something to where the people that are the leaders in the community in those neighborhoods can talk with the people that are in charge of the police of those neighborhoods. Then you start becoming and having a pathway to understanding each other. Because right now it's not like that. And that's where a lot of these issues come from. So that's the number one thing that happens here. The things that we mentioned as far as trying to get, the police more staff, we need some of that too. But it comes down again to trust. If there's no trust, then it's not going to work out.
Candidate Reichner.
I would say that the lack of police officers and the lack of courage from our current mayor has a lot of the issues. I believe that our mayor's a coward, and he chose self-preservation over the police, and he chooses vagrancy, over safety. His administration, embraced anti-police. They ignored gang violence. He had teas and talks with them to bring in all the gangs that was going to help. Let's have some tea, guys. Obviously, they didn't show. It's just weird. Police officers are doing their job. They're out there to help. They're out there risking their lives every day. And I know that people have bad experiences with police officers. I've had run-ins myself that weren't so great. And I agree with Carl that, we definitely need to legalize marijuana, decriminalize it, and not go after it. Because well, that would save on a ton of police force, a ton of money. We need to look into, you know, drugs and drug-related incidents should not be persecuted like the way they are, right? There's people in jail for a very long time for a pound of weed or whatever, you know, or the third time they had some weed. So I think that's a huge issue. But, you know, I think the trust that the police officers lost when the mayor had no back, no spine, and basically just uses them as scapegoats. So.
Let me just say real quick that it's all drugs because the academic opiates we got to is not include street drugs.
Your response, please.
So the issue in terms of our police department, I'll answer it like this. One of the marks of an effective leader is to dictate culture. We have not had that in leadership here in Louisville. So we have a culture issue in LMPD. Part of that culture issue is there's a lack of accountability. We don't have enough training. We don't have enough officers with racial competency. These are the kinds of things that when you don't have those things in place, it's almost like the Wild West. So some of the ways that I would suggest, and this is on the website, we need to remove barriers to effective misconduct investigations and civilian oversight. We need to make sure that we have a police chief that is going to take responsibility and is going to hold officers accountable. And some of the people, some of the folks that I believe would come into the police force, they're not coming in, and I know this from conversations, because of that lack of accountability. And I think that if we can reframe the way we see police, I've heard people say this on this panel, the police are not there to prevent crime, so to speak. That's up to national government, that's up to leaders. We've got to put things in place, and the police should not be being put in positions to do things that they have not been trained to do. That's part of the issue as it relates to policing, not only in Louisville, but around the country. That's very important.
Would you like to respond?
Just a friendly rebuttal to jump off what Tim was saying. This is what I'm talking about when I say officers need to be able to speak, because every single officer would agree that they're being put in positions of having to take on things that they would better be left to people who have more training in those areas. The issue is that we funded a lot of solutions from Metro Council. We're not funding the things that would make it would be a better response. And so, because that's why police are given those things, because they're the last person on the run. Let me just say this while I have some time left. There's a lot of talk about nonviolent crimes and victimless crimes, but behind every arrest, there's usually a victim who suffered some serious trauma. I've seen some pretty horrific things done to people, so let's not forget the victims in this conversation, the victims of crime who need the justice system to arrest people and benefit them.
Can you respond to him?
Yes.
Okay, so it's important that we understand this, and this is for Mr. Braddock and Mr. Greenberg. The LMPD budget is over 50% of the city budget, so I don't know what fully funded means, number one. Number two, when we talk about we defunded the police. What we defunded is the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. We defunded Evolve 502. So we do not have a funding issue in Louisville, Kentucky as it relates to LMPD. We have to get to a place where we understand we've been defunding community programs for years. If you hear fully fund police after 2020, we've got a problem with that candidate.
Candidate Parish, your response. The short answer is accountability. I definitely think that that's missing from LMPD. LMPD is guilty of a lot of things, and it's not every officer, I agree. I have officers that do give me their voice and reach out and tell me about the internal discrimination, the lack of promotion, and we keep changing the heads of chiefs, but we're not dealing with the internal issues, the rogue officers, the groups who have been tied back to racist militias and all of those things. And we saw it firsthand down at Justice Square while we were fighting for justice for Breonna Taylor. And when the police didn't show up for us as racist people came to attack us. So I know that when we talk about this, I'm not speaking as someone who hates the police. I think the police are well funded. I agree with Reverend Finley. But I think that we got to stop throwing all our roles and societal issues onto the police. They're not able to solve them. They're not lawyers. They're not doctors. They're not judges. But they're allowed to be judge, jury, and executioner many times. And many times it's against black people, marginalized people, brown people. And so we have to fix that. And that's something that we can do something about. So if Police Chief Shields wants to keep her job, she has to show a measurable difference that she has made and with being the highest paid person in metro government. Balance just became very real for some people in this race, but it's been real for me and too many others for a very long time. I live and work with people who get shot and killed. What we need is to make sure we fund the things that need. So when we talk about invest in the communities and stop robbing them.
Just as a reminder, candidates Browdick and Harding, you have used both of your allotted rebuttals. Our next question is, what specific steps will you take to decrease homicides and gun violence in Louisville Metro? What programs or projects do you see as a key to curtailing violence? And we're starting with candidate Greenberg.
So if making Louisville safer is number one priority, is my number one priority, any homicides has to be at the top of that list of priorities. And in addition to some of the policing things we talked about, there are also other effective mechanisms that have worked in other cities that we must implement better here in Louisville. Because I know if we work together, we have partnerships, we can really make this happen. One is a program called Youth Violence Intervention that some of you all might have heard about, where the federal, state, local law enforcement works with clergy, neighborhood leaders, formerly incarcerated individuals, victims of crime, and identifies those individuals who are most at risk of turning to a life of crime, and helps provide them with new opportunities, enrichment, educational opportunities, jobs, to help them on a new path in life. We also, one of the things I proposed in my all-in comprehensive plan is a new social work academy for police officers. So they are trained with the tools necessary to help support people in other ways than they currently do. The City of Louisville has just started a new first responder program working with mental health professionals. I believe that will help also to address crime, to expand that program throughout the city. And we must continue to support the development of more mental health professionals across. We also need to really improve services that will reduce domestic violence, that will address addiction treatment as well. All of these things are more than just policing that will help address this issue.
Candidate Harding.
So violence really comes from the same place here as it does everywhere else, and that is that it is miserable to live in this country if you are not filthy rich. You've heard that it's expensive to be broke, as much sense as that makes. So a lot of this, like making the community safer, is like give these kids a future. Skylar said it, these young kids commit these crimes. Well, yeah, because there is no future for them. Like, not only is the world on fire and you've done nothing about it, but we criminalize people for personal choices. Like, we talk a lot about crime, and it's like, what is crime? A difference in opinion, or like something that violates another individual? Because I don't think that the crime rate that we deal with is reflective of actual violent crime. It's reflective of what we decided was okay and what wasn't. So once you get to work at like restoring these communities, these neighborhoods, you get people like, what would y'all do if you look out, oh my God, the government's actually doing something for me? I mean, I bet you might actually start thinking about your future, but until then, like, dude, I'm 34 years old, I don't really see a great future. When I'm my mom's age, oh, I don't know, we might be living in Mad Max. So why would somebody 18 care? Not to mention, people learn from the environment, so it's like all they ever know is people got locked up and, jail life, that's just all they're gonna know. We gotta show people something other than violence, desperateness, and hopelessness.
On this topic that we also talked so much of all these different forums that we've had, sometimes the answer that I have, even when sometimes a reporter writes it out in the article, it's almost like put out as a joke. One reporter, when they answered this question at the Simmons College Forum, when they put my name next to the answer, they just said church. It's like it's a joke. It's not a joke. For 20 years, I've had the opportunity of working in the city with kids. The 4 and 5-year-olds that have been under our care, now that they're teenagers, are they perfect? No. But when they've come across big issues in their lives, they've had people there. And I think that's what needs to happen. We need to have work, the city needs to work with these community centers, work with the House of Faith, come up with a system. And I've been talking about this several times, and just yesterday, and it's not Fox News in case you think I just look at Fox News, it was CNN, they had an article about this whole issue. How do you solve gun violence? And guess what we're talking about? Experiments that they've done in other cities where they have people working with the youth in the city, working with people that can go to someone that the tempers get high when young people want to go ahead and just retaliate. They can go and have people they can talk to, they can work with, and not just go back to just grab a gun and kill somebody. So those are the type of things how you reduce gun violence: one-on-one direction and attention to young people.
Candidate Rushman.
So I totally believe that, through innovation and technology, we can assist the police, we can be safer. The police will be safer, the communities will be safer if they have more technology to be able, that they're being watched when they're arrested. So they're being watched when they're arresting somebody. All the information is there. We're getting the people that are actually doing it, and I believe that it will keep everybody safer. But we need to partner with, to utilize the race-based trauma and anti-racism resources. We need to bring the police together with the communities, and with they can maybe mentor trauma victims to reduce, recidivism. Mental health is a huge issue, and so we need to find ways to work that. So we need to find ways to work that in. But I think some of our issues too are actually, as parents, as leaders and everything, we need to teach morality, and I understand that there's bad issues, but also if we teach hate either way and we blame somebody either way, right? So if you say all police are bad because of a few, well, then we're doing the same thing that you're trying to fight against. So I think that we need to work together with the police force to be able to make a change and work with the communities and community leaders.
Candidate Finley.
If we're going to address gun violence, then we cannot move away from the fact that there is a cycle of intergenerational poverty, violence, and trauma that's driving gun violence. So before we get to working with the police, which that's a valid point, we got to, as an administration, rethink how we're spending tax dollars, shift from the massive spending on police to an investment in a shared vision of community. As a former employee of this administration, I was the faith-based liaison in the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. I sat in Metro Chambers Council, and they talked about how for years they had defunded OSHA, they defunded programs, until we understand that the answer is not more police. The answer is dealing with the root causes and the lack of hope. The answer is in infrastructure. The answer is in propping up our nonprofit community, which really is a part of the infrastructure, and doing the things that are bringing the kinds of economic pushes into communities that have been void of that. You cannot talk about gun violence and the lack of hope and not talk about the fact that we don't just have a food desert, we have food apartheid. These are the things that we have to address. Until we do that, every answer you hear tonight regarding police is the same answer that Mayor Fisher gave in his debate, the same answer that Jared Abramson gave in his debate. They're all the same. We've got to do something different, and I'm the mayor to do that.
Candidate Parish, right?
I lived at Hemlock and Southern, where my children saw people robbed by gunpoint outside of our window. I asked my council person, which was then, she's now Judge Green. I always think of her mom. And I said that we need mobile trauma response units as she was trying to respond to the violence in District 1. I've been asking for that because I know what it's like to stop violence, to do conflict resolution, to stop people from killing themselves, to understand what people are dealing with. So we need to bring our programming to the children, the youth, and the families. I always ask for 24-hour community centers in every corner of our county and our city, making sure they're connected to faith leaders and churches, making sure that our seniors can help educate our youth and tell them how to deal with trauma and conflict resolution, and have people that are students, that are doctors, that are professionals to come in the community. I can say something that nobody else can say. I actually work in a field that deals with crime and violence, and I have people that are experts on my team. My administration is going to invest in things that incentivize gun buybacks with real valuable issues. How can we make sure that guns don't come right back to our communities? How can we work with cloud? I definitely believe GBI works. Let's look at the cities where it's working and let's apply and build in the context for Louisville. I know that we do have to have a partnership with law enforcement, but before we get there, we need to take care of our nonprofits that are dealing with the younger children, ages 25 to 2500, and make sure that we are working together effectively.
Hey, McGrath. So I patrol the 3rd Division, that's South Dixie Highway area. It's the methamphetamine and heroin capital of our city. And so I would Narcan people, I would do CPR on people. A lot of people made it, a lot of people didn't. And I have to talk to people whose families were impacted by that. Then I'd go home and I'd turn on the news and I'd hear, well, let me say this, there's 2 ways that people got addicted to heroin, and I talked to them about that. One was, my girlfriend was on it and she said, let's do it, now I'm hooked. The other is, I was in a motorcycle accident, I got a lot of pain pills, now I'm hooked to heroin when the pain pills dried up. So I'd go home from Narcan and CPRing people, turn on the news, and I'd hear from our government that, hey, we're going after the big pharma, we're going after those pills. Well, my friends, you're a little bit late to the party, okay? So while you're going after the pills, I had people dying on the street of heroin. Upstream solutions like education, ending poverty, those will always be the main ways that we end violence, period. But right now we have shootings in our city that are out of control. I read an article about someone who came from a war-torn country whose pregnant wife was killed by stray bullets. I can tell you what you want to hear, and that might get me some easy votes so I can be honest and maintain my integrity. And the only way, the idea that we can't police our way and arrest our way out of the problem, that was more true 10 years ago. We need to aggressively go after violent criminals. That's going to involve more police use of force. That's going to involve more police shootings. So we need to decide what we want to do here. We have to get aggressive on violent crime because we told people for too long that you're allowed to hurt people and there's no consequences. I saw it every day when I went to court.
Do you support changing the law that prohibits the destruction of guns confiscated during criminal activity? Yes or no? If you were mayor, would you be willing to direct LMPD and your administration to work with community organizations to get this law changed in Frankfurt? Candidate Harden, we'll start with you.
I've got to say, it's a not Victoria, it means it's Latin. It means victory loves preparation. And as far as the Second Amendment is concerned, I guess I should say no, I don't support taking guns or destroying that or anything. As far as the Second Amendment is concerned, we have a populace that is allowed to use weapons that are not know how to do it whatsoever. I mean, anybody who knows how to use a gun, I guarantee you your grandfather taught you, or your uncle did. And there was no type of program, training, readiness for any type of situation. It's like, you know, I'm sure we all seen things like right? They were Spartans. They had swords, shields, spears. They knew how to use them. And just the reason that you don't know how to use it means you don't respect it. If you don't respect it, I mean, how can you command it? So, one of my thought processes was like, we'll get local law enforcement to run. She's laughing at that. We'll get local law enforcement to run, you know, training ops. That sounds a little military, but like preparation, so that people will then, you know, they'll work towards building trust with police officers again. Everybody that has a gun will be competent enough to use it. Like, you can't field strip your weapon, I don't think you should have it. And that's what we'll do. We'll work on preparing everybody. This country's failed in the Second Amendment because it says a well-regulated militia. Right now, we have a bunch of amateurs with, you know, hotheads, no hope, and, you know, the deadliest weapon outside of explosives that we've ever seen.
And point of clarification, you did say yes or no, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, no, I said no.
Candidate Molestina.
You just wanted one answer? That's it?
There's 2 parts to it, so yes or no, and your reasoning behind it.
No, I don't agree with that. I think the same thing like you were saying, we need to go ahead and know that sometimes the things that are in place are the right ones, the people that are doing it, and that are at fault are the ones that are actually to be corrected. If you talk to people that come from other countries that are immigrants, they are amazed about 2 things here when it comes to this issue. They're amazed that there's guns here because in most countries if you have a gun you get in trouble. But at the same time they're amazed that the people that shouldn't have guns have them. And that's where the problem comes from. So what happens is that what's in place is right, it's just the way it's being done. Because one thing that happens is that we when I talk to people that have this issue a lot, is that in countries that wish they had the ability to have a way to defend themselves, they don't. And that's why things are the way they are. that we have problems with that has to be corrections have to be made, has to be better training, more accountability, yes. But taking it away, I don't agree with that.
Candidate Reichman.
There's no mic. I believe this should take away guns. You know, people have a right to bear arms. We have a right to carry a gun legally. The issue is not people that are carrying guns legally. The issue is people illegally carrying guns. Because you can have a carry concealed or not concealed in Kentucky. So the issue is criminals can carry and conceal 24 hours a day. They're going to get weapons no matter what. So if there's a crime, yeah, you can take the gun, confiscate it, and destroy it. If there's no crime, people should be allowed to have their own weapons to be able to protect themselves, even if they don't know how to do it. Because especially with the murder rate here in Louisville, you know, you're like 1 in every 200 or 1 in every 140 people is going to get hit by a violent crime. So I would rather that person be able to protect themselves with a weapon, even if they don't know how to use it, than not have one at all.
Candidate Greenberg, do you have a response?
No, I was just going to ask if you could repeat the question.
Oh, okay.
It's a different question than you answered.
Okay, so for anyone else who needs it, do you support changing the law that prohibits the destruction of guns confiscated during criminal activity? Yes or no? If you were mayor, would you be willing to direct LMPD and your administration to work with community organizations to get this law changed in Frankfurt? Candidate Finley, your response.
Yes, I do support those guns being destroyed emphatically. There are too many guns on the street. There are too many high-powered assault weapons on the street. And there is absolutely, positively no reason to have this many guns on the street. And it's interesting that some of the laws that have come from Frankfurt came from our friends on the Republican side. So that's part of the issue. And yes, I would do everything in my power as the mayor to go to Frankfurt and lobby, do whatever needs to be done, because there are too many guns on the street. And there's no reason why a 15-year-old should have a high-powered assault rifle. No reason. If they get picked up, wherever it is, the guns need to be destroyed emphatically.
Candidate Parish, right?
I just want to say he concurred with me, and I said yes. I actually helped turn decommissioned guns into garden tools with raw tools. I suggest you all look them up. They came here when the NRA came here in 2016, and I was working with Swords of Justice Network and saw and got to hammer those things. As a victim of gun violence, my daughter's father was killed. So many people that I know, I've seen death in so many ways. I'm against guns, but my husband loves guns, and he is trained, and he keeps our guns locked up, and I believe in responsible gun ownership. I also help connect Moms Demand Action right here, to the Urban League, the track now, and making sure that we're supporting them as they do their work. The opioid crisis has made it hard. Those recommissioned guns, a lot of them come from gun owners who own pawn shops, and then their kids are on opioids, and then guess what? Guns have a high resale value. That's why I miss Reverend Lewis Coleman. I miss Luther Brown, who provided gun locks. Reverend Lewis Coleman did gun buyback. We can't just give people $25 gift card for a gun that they can sell on TikTok for $400. We have to have real tangible solutions. So I definitely support that, and we need to do more education. There's groups out there doing training. I suggest everyone get trained and know what they're doing, and we do mental health checks with people to make sure they're ready. And so, yeah, nonviolence is something that I practice. We need to decommission guns that are confiscated.
Candidate Grady.
I think this question originates from a news story where basically police confiscated guns and then they would sell them back for money and then they'd wind up back on the street. So the truth is that whether you want to destroy the guns or not, people will get more guns. One of the people I dealt with a lot on the street was a heroin dealer. He was probably the easiest person to deal with because he knew the game. You'd arrest him, you'd take his heroin, you'd take his guns. Next day, or a week from then, he'd be out there again with another gun. The guns are so proliferated that destroying the ones that you confiscate, I don't think that's going to make a dent in the kind of crime we're talking about. People don't understand going through the court system, whether you're talking about domestic violence, whether you're talking about sexual assault, whether you're talking about gun crime. Our courts just do not enforce the laws. They don't do victims a service. They do them a great disservice by not following through. So we don't need any more laws, we don't need to destroy any more guns. There's a very small percentage of our population, because most of the violent crime, who's learned from going through the system again and again that it's okay to do crime. I'm a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. I was a political science major. It was my job as an officer to enforce constitutional rights of people, and so I'm not sure why we like to attack certain constitutional rights and promote other ones. We have the Constitution, it needs to be respected. I love teaching people who are apprehensive or scared about guns to shoot. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love guns. I like teaching people to shoot. I do think, however, that it's kind of ridiculous that you could go to a gun store and pay $500 and walk out not knowing how to use it. To disassemble guns, you need to pull their triggers. That's how a lot of people get shot. They don't know how to clear their weapon. I would support a tax incentive. This is one of my public policy points, that when you go to a gun store, you have a tax incentive to get training, to give people the ability to know how to use their weapons.
Thank you.
I want to challenge Mr. Grotta.
Yes.
So the issue is that those guns do come back, and guns last a long time. So there's young people that don't just get caught with AR-15s, they get caught with old guns. And so what is your solution for that? Because many of our young black, brown, and poor white youth carry guns for protection and don't understand. You tout legalization, but if they have a gun on them and they have marijuana, that's an upcharge, and then they're charged for the rest of their life. What is your solution on how we get them the ability to be able to carry a gun legally?
If they're that young, they're not carrying guns. Now, this is something that, to my Republican friends, there's usually a thing by the Republicans that once people are in the court system, or if they come from a bad place, they come from poverty, and they're destined to be criminals, they're destined to do violent things. I don't buy that one bit. It has a racial issue and a side to it that I disagree with, and I don't like hearing. But to your point, 18 and over. So, I mean, I'm sorry, those kids need to be disciplined. And the reason they're doing those things and breaking into cars and having guns is because they see other people where they themselves have been through the system too many times, and they know that there's no consequences. Just because they get arrested doesn't mean that they don't have a future. I don't believe that for one second.
Kennedy Greenberg, your response, please.
I agree with Reverend Finley, I agree with Ms. Parish Wright, that yes, we should destroy guns that have been used to commit violent crimes. And yes, I will work with anyone in Louisville who wants to work to get illegal guns off the street. Already this year, in Louisville, 55 people have been killed by guns. That's 55 people too many. Last year, nearly 200 people were killed with guns. Hundreds of more were injured. Thousands of more family members, neighbors, friends, and neighborhoods were impacted by senseless gun violence. Anything I can do to work with anyone in this community who wants to be part of the solution to end gun violence is welcome in my administration, is someone who I want to work with in Louisville, in Frankfurt, across the entire state and country to end senseless gun violence.
At this time, each candidate will get 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Before the event, candidates drew numbers to determine the order. Starting with candidate Finley.
We stand at a very, very critical point in our city. This election coming up, May 17, 2022, is one of the most consequential elections in many of our lifetimes. If you look at the last administration, ask yourself, do we want another 4 years of what we had to deal with? Do we want another wealthy business person as mayor? Do we want someone who has been a part of the administration and yet done nothing to change the tide of our city? It is time for someone new. It's time for someone different. As a pastor, as a community leader, as one who listens, as one who gets things done, one who works with many people in this room. Although I don't talk about it a lot, many of the experiences that my friend Shamika Parish Wright talks about, I've had those experiences. And the truth is, I will bring the most diverse administration this city has ever seen. I will not simply be a rock on the lawn, a bump on the lawn. But I will be one that fights for Louisville. I will be one that represents Louisville. And if you vote for me, you are voting for history. I am proud to say that I'm looking forward to becoming the first black mayor of Louisville, Kentucky. And our city is ready for it. I'm asking you to not simply go off of what you read in the paper. Don't go off of fundraising. Go to each one of our websites. Read our platforms. Don't look for theory. Look for plans. Look at who has a plan going forward and make an informed decision. Because the media has already crowned the next mayor. If we go that route, we're going to get another 4 years. Take a chance with me. We're going to do something amazing. We're going to make history. Our time is now.
Senator Greenberg.
Tonight, you've heard us all talk about some of our plans. I want to create 15,000 new affordable homes. I want to have a safer city, one where we have the most trained, trusted, and transparent police department in America. I want to provide universal pre-K for all 3- and 4-year-olds. These might sound like lofty goals to some, but to me, it's what we must do. Incremental change is not of interest to me. It's not an option. I wouldn't have gotten in the race if it was, and I certainly wouldn't still be in the race. We have big challenges in our city, but as I mentioned earlier, I think by working together, we can create even bigger opportunities for everyone. We can unify our city, and together, we can make Louisville a safer, stronger, and healthier city. I too encourage you to visit my website, greenbergformayor.com. Read my plans and hold me accountable. I expect, as your next mayor of Louisville, to be held accountable for the promises and the plans that we're talking about tonight, and for these lofty goals to make Louisville a safer city, a more just city, a more vibrant city, a cleaner city, one that all of us are proud to call home. Thank you all so much for taking a couple hours of your busy night to be here and participate in democracy, to participate in this election. I encourage all of you to vote 3 weeks from tonight on May 17th or one of the early days before then. That's the most important. Get involved, participate, vote, and be a part of the solution to make Louisville a safer city, a stronger city, and a healthier city. Thank you all very much.
Senator Parish, right?
I want to pull a soldier boy. I was the first one who announced my intentions to run for mayor in January of 2021 because I knew it would be an uphill battle to run against the wind, to ask you, Louisville, to do something different, to ask you to know that the nation, the world, is watching where we will go. I didn't step out there in the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement as my first time for improving your lives. I've been doing it the whole time that I've been here. Over 20 years of proven service of bringing people together, managing millions of dollars. Yeah, they don't talk about that when you Google me. Managing, helping nonprofits start, helping business, helping people get elected. That's what I've been doing, and that's what I plan to do as your mayor. And yes, I am running as the only woman in this race, the only black woman in this race, but I'm not asking you to vote for me just because of that. I'm asking you to believe in what I'm trying to do for our city with you at the table in a real way. These fancy websites and all of these policy platforms, and I don't do press conferences for everything that I'm going to do, because guess what? People achieve less than 15% of what they run on. I've been coming at you with a real simple campaign of tangible options to get things done, and that's what you deserve. When I talk about we get there together, I want all of you at the table, and I'm the only one that has a proven track record of bringing such diverse groups together to handle business. I will continue to show up with you. I will continue to be there for you and listen to you and make sure that you're there at every point. I don't run on things that I can't do. I run on how we can get it done together. You need a leader. And I've been under attack. I've been questioned by the FBI. I'm being sued. Everything that I have been doing has been about lives. and I have my children, your friends, your family, your children right with me. I'm running for all of us, and I'm going to give our youth a voice. I'm going to take care of our seniors. Elder Service is going to be fully funded. All the issues and the problems and the society things that we've been needing, I'm going to work on together. Help me get there together. Thank you.
Candidate Molestina.
Thank you again for being here tonight, taking your time. I know that sometimes people, the question that people don't ask sometimes is a question that I want to answer. And one of the things that I want to answer tonight is, how come someone that is from an Hispanic background, someone that's not black, it's not white, it's from a different, different race, what do they have to do with the city of Louisville? Why would I run? The answer is, how come opportunity is only good for some people? Why is opportunity just good for some people? And why do I say that? Because in the experience that I have being in the city over 40 years, and people that I meet, which a lot of them are people that come from other countries, you know what bothers me the most about it? Not that they come. How come they come and they get to move ahead quicker than the people that are really living here? Someone may say, well, because they get government help or all these other things. It's not that, because I've seen the families. I see what they get, a little bit that they may get to be able to move ahead when they get here. After that, it dries out. So why do the people that come from out of the country move ahead more than the people that are here? You know what the answer is? Because the system, unfortunately, has put shackles on so many people by trying to just fix and give a little things to them. And that little bit they give, they just try to say that's enough. So next time the election turns around, next time another candidate gets here in 4 years, they're going to promise you certain things for a little while, but it's not really, they don't really care about solving it. I care about everyone in the city having an opportunity. Not just the people that are coming from abroad, not the people that move from the state. Everybody that lives in Louisville should have an opportunity for the best education, best housing, best everything. It shouldn't just be a few of them. And that's the reason I'm running, and I hope I get your vote. Thank you.
Candidate Weissman.
Thank you all for coming. I would like to say that I'm running for mayor because my family almost became a statistic one day. This is my family, this is what I'm running for. My wife, my kids. I would like to also say that my son told me I need to tell everybody my endorsements. So my endorsements are Noah, Rory, and Steele Reichman. My wife is still on the fence, so I'm not sure who she's going to go for yet. But, I'm really doing this because I care about everybody. We have different opinions, we have different views. Most everybody up here is genuine, and I think that that's what you need to vote for your next mayor. Because what's happened is we've gone too political. Mr. Billy said, go to the websites, right? He was the first one to do all these things, which is great, and he's really good at it too. But then he said, look at the campaign funds, which I suggest you guys go to campaign funds as well, because my campaign is actually the only one that's not accepting donations. And instead of accepting donations, I require that you go out and give your money and or time to local charities, that you go out and you help somebody, you help a stranger, you do nice things for people, you wave hi to somebody you don't know, just somebody random on the street, you just wave hi, right? Because change is not going to happen with a mayor by itself, a governor, a political party, or anything by itself. Change is going to happen when we all decide that we need to change, we need to get together to figure out how we make that change and how we work for each other. So I'm the only one that's not taking campaign donations, and you can look at some other ones, and eventually the bat has to be scratched if you're getting a lot of campaign donations from especially out-of-state corporate funds. So just go out and vote for somebody that's like a man calling.
Candidate Harding.
So, the reason that I'm running is because I looked at politics. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, it takes a lot of courage to go up there and say the things that you believe in and not what they want to hear. And it dawned on me that that's what politics is, theater. Now, I have made it a point. I don't do notes or anything. I will answer all my ideas right off the top of my head because apparently, I'm off, you go to the website, but how do I know you wrote that? not you, but using as a general. I mean, the same thing when people go up there and they talk about, you know, their plans to actually move forward. They're reading something that somebody else could have wrote. I mean, Denzel's a great actor, it doesn't mean he'd be a great politician. And that's the problem, is that politicians, they accept no responsibility. All they do is point fingers, right? And I swear to God, the Democrats are throwing it just so they can go back to saying the Republicans, they're blocking everything in Congress. Like, that's 100% what's going on. So, I want everybody to look up here and see the people up here that are doing it for the community, the ones that are literally trying to better this community. Because we've heard a lot of talk about like ideas and policies and the right to lead, but I think we all forget that being a public servant is just that. I'm not asking to lead anyone, I'm asking to serve. I work in the hospitality industry. It's something I've always enjoyed to do. And I'm biracial, so like the white, black, the race thing is silly. There's one race, the human race. If you can't, you know, see past that, you reject it, just basic evolution. And when I close my eyes, and I think of Americans, they look like everything. The one thing that a country has going for it that nobody can take away from us is you don't know what an American looks like. So, as he said, please make your voices heard, because for too long, the powers that be have created their ruling class, and that's what they do, they rule us. And we need something more than that. So, you can just find my whole platform and think, hardforlouisville.com.
Candid Graphic. You guys so much for having me. I know how much work it is to put a debate together. I think this was really well done, so thank you. One of the better ones I've been to, actually. My name is Skylar Braddock. I'm a moderate Democrat running for mayor of Louisville. Again, I'm for the First Amendment for all public employees to have the right to criticize their administration without fear of being fired, and for the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. I'm fiercely pro-unions and will support unions in the public and private sectors so that we can get people a living wage, insurance benefits and pension benefits they need to survive and prosper. I'm for the full legalization of recreational marijuana and using that money, part of that tax dollars, to expunge people's records free of charge who have related criminal charges. I am for the police. I'm unapologetically pro-police. I want to end food deserts in our areas that have been most neglected. I want before, after, and summer school programs to keep our youth off the streets and to better their education. Now, when we go in front of a lot of groups, every group wants to know that you know all about their issues. It would be disingenuous to say that I'm an expert in every issue, but I am an expert, and I think the two areas that are most threatening to our city. One is public safety. I have 6 years as a police officer. I know the ins and outs of the department. I know what's really wrong with it. I know what is causing morale issues. I know what it takes in interacting with people who are victims of crime, what our social services are and what they aren't, where they need to be bolstered. I was also a lobbyist for a union. I have a record of standing up for Kentuckians and working families and the common people against the big money interests in our state. And so, even if we wave the magic wand at the local level, if there's a tax bar at state level that continue to target the average working person, we're not going to get very far. And I would be a strong supporter of our average people in Kentucky and in our city. My website is braddockformayor.com. You can find me on Facebook at Skylar Braddock for Mayor of Louisville. I respond to all social media messages and emails, so I look forward to hearing your feedback or getting to know you guys better. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for our amazing moderators? Thank you all.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to all of our candidates for showing up tonight, for answering questions, for challenging each other. We really do appreciate it. This is exactly what we need. I also want to thank everyone who is in this room, who has stayed here. We've had a few people that had to, kind of bounce on us, but a lot of folks have stayed, and I'm so very thankful for you all. This is such an important election. There are a lot of really important things that are going to be on the ballot. So May 17th, make sure you vote. Go to vote. Go vote early if you can. Take others to vote. Make sure everybody around you is using their voice. People have died for us to be able to do this. So let's make sure we do it. I also want to say that the one question we didn't get to tonight because we wanted to end on time was about mental health. And so I challenge all of the candidates to make sure that you're thinking about how you would, if you in fact were to be mayor, how you would improve access to mental health in our community, because it certainly is a crisis. I just want to say thank you to everyone here, especially Lyndon Pryor. Thank you so much for all of the work that you've done. Thank you to the team at the Louisville Urban League. Thank you to the board for always being so supportive. And to these young people, if you could just stand up and come up here. Whatever other disappointment the world has offered us, let's remember these three and what they have done here tonight. I am so proud of our students. I am so proud. All three JCPS students. Thank you all so much. Say it in.
Josiah Finley.
Thank you all. Everybody vote. There is